ACID got me seeing souls, they hybrids in my eye beams, but I've been looking blindly. Gave my soul up for perfect timing. A desert cat reinvented rhyming. How crazy is that?
What's going on, everybody? So first thing first, this is not the Soul Reaver 2 retrospective video. This is the scrapped original version of that video. Pretty soon I will be releasing the true Soul Reaver 2 retrospective video, but I'm just putting this out here just to kind of give you guys like a placeholder. You know, hopefully you'll enjoy this. This has all been scrapped though, so I do apologize. A lot of stuff is unfinished. If you think it sucks and you want to dislike, that's totally fine. I totally get it. But I just wanted to throw that in here in the beginning, just so that everybody understands that this is not the retrospective video. This is literally like just a small snippet of what I have planned for the actual video. This whole thing has been scrapped, and the whole video has been reworked. So this will all be different when that video comes out. But until then, if you're interested, go ahead and enjoy. Late. Have you ever played a game series that you could honestly say probably changed your life for the better? These are the words that I used to open up my very first retrospective video on the Legacy of Kain series. Now at the time I did not explain to you guys why it was that I decided that I should open that video with that quote. And I didn't, because I was saving that for this video. You see, when I was a teenager, I was kind of going through a little bit of a depression, just a little bit of a funk. I was never really what you would call a social butterfly. I was rather socially awkward. And I remember a lot of people telling me that I would never succeed. My own grandmother told me I would never amount to being shit because I wasn't 6'4" and 400 pounds. That's neither here nor there. That's just something funny I remembered. I decided to just leave it in the video. But what I will tell you is, there was a quote in this game that actually proved to me that I should never give up, and that as long as you work hard, and as long as you continue to try, you can make your dreams come true. And that was this quote right here.
Hate me, but do it honestly.
And that was the day that I decided that I was going to make a YouTube channel, make 2 retrospective videos, and then make a 3rd retrospective video after making everybody wait for almost an entire year, and then tell them, like, hey, guess what, dude? There actually is no retrospective video, and I just fucking tricked you all. Every one of you, and you fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker.
Hate me, 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 hate.
Okay, no, so obviously I'm just messing with you guys. I'm sorry. I could not help myself. This is the real quote I was actually talking about.
You said it yourself, Kain. There are only 2 sides to your coin.
Apparently so. But suppose you throw a coin enough times. Suppose one day it lands on its edge.
Now let me just say, every single time I see that scene, it just makes me want to play all of these games all over again. But as I'm sure you can imagine, where I'm going with this is that the whole one day it lands on its edge thing to me really hit home. And I've always used that metaphor in my mind to kind of remind myself that you just need to work hard. It might take a long time, and it might not even happen before you're dead, but there is always a small chance that the coin will land on its edge. So in everything that you do, you should always go forward with the full intention of not giving up and having the will to continue to push forward. And this game is what really taught me that lesson, and for that I will always be thankful for this game. And I would be willing to bet that I'm not the only person who feels that way about this game. But with that being said, there is just one more thing I want to talk about before we get into this video proper, and that is that Crystal Dynamics, who, by the way guys, Crystal Dynamics is still around. Alright, they're part of Square Enix now. So it's not like they're a defunct company. The reason I bring that up is you can buy this game on Steam, and it's broken. This game needs to be fixed. Like, dude, you have no idea the hell I went through to get this game up and running. It took me literal months. Okay, maybe I'm a dumbass, alright? I'm not a wizard when it comes to computers. But, dude, like, don't sell this game if it's not gonna work. It just does not jive with modern computers at all. And it was just the biggest headache, guys, I'm telling you. I'm sorry for this little rant, but oh my god. You have no idea how hard it was. I tried to emulate it on an emulator on PC, and even that was giving me issues. In fact, I didn't even get it to really run properly until I just decided to say fuck the resolution and just play it at its native resolution. You know, and once I did that, it ran relatively good, except for some reason every time I pushed E, because I'm playing this on a PC, which is supposed to be the button that you use to dodge, it wasn't working. So, just please, for the love of God, Crystal Dynamics, either make a remake, which would be freaking awesome. I think everyone listening to me speak right now would love to get a remake of these games, but either make a remake or just fix it. How hard can it be for you guys to just make it run? That's all I want. I'm not even expecting it to be like the best game ever. I'm not expecting it to have the best frames ever. I mean, it's super old. It's never going to be some modern AAA masterpiece, but at least get it to run, guys. Please, for the love of God. Okay, I'm done. Moving on. So, with all that being said, thank you for your time if you're still here. Appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And let's get into production and development. So, here we are again. Last time we left off, we were talking about the lawsuit between Silicon Knights and Crystal Dynamics. Amy Hennig is now the person who is helming this project, and I could honestly say I have mixed feelings about that, simply because I do love Dennis Dyack and I think he's a fucking genius, but at the same time I do appreciate everything that Amy Hennig did for this series. And in my opinion, the most important thing that she actually brought to Soul Reaver 2 is the simple fact that they finally decided to make this a game that is not a block puzzle simulator. Praise the fucking Lord. Oh my god, thank you, sweet baby Jesus. If I had to do more block puzzles, I probably would have ripped my eyes out with a spoon and fed them to my dog. But that doesn't mean that the game's development was smooth. In fact, it was rather the opposite. They were met with a myriad of different problems, and they had to restart from square one multiple times just to get this game finished. Partially because of what was going on with Blood Omen 2, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother video, which we will get to soon. But just to show you guys, or to give you an example of what it is that I'm talking about, I'm going to read a quote from Amy Hennig herself, from an interview that she did with GameSpot.com. When Amy Hennig was asked how it felt to finish the game, she had this to say in response. Very odd. I don't think the team can quite believe it yet. It's like running a marathon and then suddenly you've crossed the finish line, you're done. But reflectively, you feel like you're still supposed to be sprinting. It took a little while for it to settle in. Finishing the game has been very satisfying, much more so than last time. We've all been so focused on the task at hand that there were many times that we not only lost the forest for the trees, but we also lost the trees for the bark. When you're working insane hours just trying to get through all the discrete tasks that need to get done, you sometimes forget to look up and see the whole thing that is coming together. It becomes a matter of fate. Like working on a jigsaw puzzle, upside down. You can see that the individual pieces fit together, but not necessarily the picture that it is forming. For most of us, I think, It was a revelatory moment to stop, get a little distance, and finally see the gestalt of the game as the final pieces came together. And I have to say, it is kind of funny looking back at this now, considering the fact that I was around during this time. Like, I was one of those people that was really looking forward to playing this game and felt like it was taking forever. And they took a lot of flack for that. But the reality is it only really took them like 2 years to make this game. And I mean, nowadays, that's nothing. I mean, Skyrim came out like, what, 12 years ago? And we still don't have Elder Scrolls 6? So I mean, it should really show you right there, like, the huge difference between the way things used to be and the way things are now. And now, granted, technology is advanced quite a bit, but it's still kind of funny just to look back at this moment, simply because, I mean, dude, I'm telling you, like, they were getting people just that were pissed that the game was taking so long to come out. And I've always felt bad for Amy Hennig for that, because it was legitimately not her fault. But let's discuss that a little more. In that same GameSpot interview, the interviewer asked this question. The game has definitely been in the works for a long time. Now keep in mind here, guys, we're talking 2 years. Okay, so it really isn't that long. But the game has definitely been in the works for a long time. What can you say to fans of the game who felt that they were perhaps forced to wait for too long? Amy Hennig's response. I'm glad to answer this. Soul Reaver 2 hasn't been in development as long as people think. It's basically been 2 years since we finished up Soul Reaver, including the PC and Dreamcast ports and all foreign versions that had to be completed following the US release of Soul Reaver on the PlayStation. A 2-year development cycle is pretty normal, or even aggressive by today's standards. If you look at some of the other big sequels coming out this season, for most, it's been almost 3 years since the previous installment, which is true. Very true. And again, Soul Reaver, guys, I mean, 2 years is nothing. If anything, they probably could have used a little more time, but let's continue. But the Soul Reaver 2 team also had an extra handicap, which I don't think most people realize. The game was originally slated to be a PlayStation title, and we didn't get the go-ahead to switch to PS2 until May of 2000. 2000, guys. So they were basically building this game for Dreamcast, PC, and PlayStation for almost a year before they decided to switch over to the PlayStation 2. Damn. This was after a 3-week effort where we put together a proof of concept technology demo for E3, which I remember that. If I remember correctly, that's E3 2000, where they actually put this demo together, and then they finally got the approval to actually make this on the PS2. But we continue again. Based on this demo, we got Eidos's approval to drop the PlayStation development and move to PS2, which was a great choice. Praise the Lord that they actually approved that and let them move Soul Reaver 2 to the PS2. Can you guys imagine how it would have been if it was on the PlayStation? I'm sure it would have been a decent game, but I mean, the PlayStation was dying at that point. And they definitely needed it because they were going to have to compete with some pretty big name contenders. I mean, this same E3 where they put together this little demo, right, this behind the scenes demo so that they can convince Eidos to let them switch to PS2. This same show was the exact same show that Metal Gear Solid 2 stole the show from. I mean, MGS2. So Soul Reaver was gonna need to compete with the likes of MGS2, and it would have no chance, period, if they didn't actually switch to the PlayStation 2. And I think we all know how that went. Continuing, we came back from E3 2000 full of enthusiasm, but wondering how in hell were we going to pull this off. We had to scrap all the work we had done on the PlayStation version and start from square one, and with only a 4-man program team. Damn, 4 people working on this game. We had to write a PS2 engine basically from scratch, with still incorporating the most ambitious technological elements at the core of the Soul Reaver engine. Most specifically, the continuous data streaming and terrain morphing technologies that made Soul Reaver so unique. To make a long story short, we created Soul Reaver 2 from the ground up in just 17 months. This required a heroic effort, remarkable dedication, and sickening hours from the team. I am so proud of my teammates, and I am blown away by what they've been able to accomplish in this short amount of time. I believe we succeeded at creating a deep, compelling technology, and it's an ambitious project, more than capable of competing with the big budget, multi-year titles coming out at the same time. Now, this doesn't mean I'm writing off the competition, and I understand the complaints and frustration of the fans. I believe it is the responsibility of the developer and the publisher to not announce release dates until they're solid. Otherwise, you're just toying with the hopes and expectations of your fan base. For this, I think we owe our fans an apology and gratitude for their loyalty and patience, which I do not agree with, especially because, like I've been saying, dude, 17 months is not a long time. 2 years to wait for Soul Reaver 2 is not a long time. But I get it, because the first game ended in a huge cliffhanger, and that's why people really wanted this. But as I'm sure you can probably tell by my YouTube channel, and considering how long it took me to make this video, I honestly believe that you should at least try to make things as best as you can before you release them. By the way, thank you for having patience with me. Continuing, Gabe Spot asks, how do you feel the game competes with what's currently out there in the action-adventure category? Amy Hennig would respond with, honestly, I believe Soul Reaver 2 easily holds its own amongst the current crop of amazing action-adventure titles out there, which is a huge coup for the team. Given our comparatively short production schedule, if anything, we tend to be more overcritical of our own work. So I can tell you that I wouldn't even be doing this interview if I didn't feel pride and enthusiasm for the final product. We knew the competition we'd be up against, so we deliberately set the bar very high. For instance, we decided early on that it would be unacceptable for the game to run at least 60 frames per second. So we tailored the game content to meet this requirement. We knew that we had to revamp the combat system, design a greater variety of enemies, construct larger and more ornate environments, and provide more unique and more elaborate puzzles. There are games that are glitterized or that surpass Soul Reaver 2 in one aspect or another, but I believe we succeeded at creating an overall experience that rivals the best of our competition. What really sets Soul Reaver 2 apart from its competitors is that it has substance, the story, characters, cinematics, and voice acting. We knew from the beginning that we were going to have to pick our battles, that we couldn't necessarily compete in all aspects with some of the blockbuster projects that are out there. The real substance of Legacy of Kain series has always been its story. Everything else must proceed from this core. There are a lot of games out there that are superficially beautiful, but have no depth. They're all surface and no heart. My greatest hope is that we have provided an immersive, thoughtful, complex experience that respects the player's intelligence. To my mind, games are as legitimate of a medium as film, television, or literature. We sell ourselves and our audience short if we write our own medium off as nothing more than a trivial diversion. And now, stepping away from this interview for a minute here, I would like to say I completely agree with everything she just said. I'm pretty sure we all know that the story of the Legacy of Kain series is what really draws us in. Some of the games are almost just, honestly, sorry to jump around, but In my opinion, the first game had the best gameplay, and it kind of went downhill from there. Soul Reaver 1 might be the worst. Soul Reaver 2 isn't that bad, it's kind of clunky. For some reason, I don't know why, I like Blood Omen 2. I know it's going to sound weird, but it kind of feels like Max Payne to me, which I always thought was odd. But that's just how it felt. Defiance obviously probably had the best gameplay, but that even Defiance kind of gets annoying after a while. Blood Omen 2's gameplay was pretty horrendous, I'm not gonna lie. But the point of this is I do believe Amy Hennig knows her series, and I really wish that she could come back and give us Dark Prophecy, that game that we were never able to get. But unfortunately, it seems that the times have changed and most people don't care as much about the story anymore. I don't know where that change happened, but it is rather unfortunate. Although I will say there have been some good games that have come out in the last 10, 15 years in terms of gameplay. I think we can all say that they have never made another franchise that with such a deep, rich history, deep, rich lore as the Legacy of Kain series. One that I think might be comparable, and we don't know yet because it hasn't been released, but if I was going to give you one, it'd be Dead House Sonata. The things that are going on with that game, the lore in that game is amazing. And if you have not heard of Dead House Sonata and you are a fan of this series, then you need to go out and try it. It is being made by, lo and behold, Dennis Dyack. And there's no coincidence whatsoever that he is the one that is making another franchise that might be comparable to Soul Reaver. I just feel like it's a shame that the story doesn't seem quite as important anymore. But I suppose that's just the state of modern gaming today. Going back on with our interview, GameSpot would then turn and ask, were any of the game's features cut out in order for it to meet its scheduled release? Amy Hennig then responds with, yes, this always happens over the course of a game's development, particularly when a project has had many twists and turns as this one. When we first switched to the PS2, we had to cut the feature list way down just to give our small programming team time to write the game engine. And as production progressed, we realized that we had vastly underestimated how long it took to create PlayStation 2 level content, especially the creation, texturing, and the lighting of the levels, compared with the PlayStation, that is. Soul Reaver 2's terrain has at least 10 times more polygonal detail, and we discovered that it was taking us 3 to 5 times longer to build, texture, and light these environments. By the end of the project, we developed many strategies to speed the process up, but there was definitely a large and anticipated learning curve. So yes, we had to simplify or eliminate many of the mechanics we had originally spec'd and deleted some of the levels we really had in our hearts, the ones that we loved and had our hearts set on. The shift to the PlayStation 2 definitely came with a cost, but we felt that it was worth it. As long as we made the cuts early enough, we retained the elements we felt were fundamental to the franchise. For example, story and dialogue, character development, and the fluidity of gameplay. GameSpot then asked, conversely, were there any last-minute additions that you didn't think would make it? Amy Hennig replies, absolutely. The team went through some collective break periods over the course of development. When it seemed that the game might become terribly compromised because of our aggressive schedule, we were determined to create a compelling game experience that would surpass Soul Reaver and rival our competitors on the PlayStation 2. But sometimes it felt as though the odds were just too stacked against us. As I mentioned earlier, I think it was a bit of a revelation for the team to step back and finally see the pieces all coming together. We were able to do some final polish work on the environmental lighting and the texturing and the lighting of the character models, which made a huge difference in the overall aesthetic quality of the game. We also kept tuning the combat mechanics and enemies right up until the end of development, so the game improved by leaps and bounds in this regard as well. I would say, though, that the game made its greatest strides in the areas of dialogue and cinematics. We recorded the dialogue fairly late in development, and therefore got a late start on the cinematics. Despite this setback, our small team of 4 very talented animators, with implementation help from a few dedicated scripters, created over 2 hours worth of compelling, richly animated cinematic sequences in just a handful of months. Which I'm going to interject here for a moment. Can you believe that? I had no idea that the dialogue and all of the cinematics were made in 2 months. That's pretty impressive. I've always wondered, and I wish I could ask her this, if she is literally the person who wrote all the dialogue. Because, the dialogue in these games are just fucking incredible. Anytime I'm explaining to somebody, what this game is, I'm always like, dude, it's like the Shakespeare of video games. Most of the time, they don't get it. But what I can say is, anytime I show somebody that first intro video for the first Soul Reaver, almost every single person I've ever shown that cutscene to, they're like, oh dude, this game looks sick. I need to try this. So the simple fact that they made pretty much all of Soul Reaver 2, in terms of the cinematics and the dialogue and stuff, within a couple of months, it's pretty impressive to me. Especially because some of the cinematics look pretty good. You can sit here and watch this like a movie. I've done it. In fact, I'd probably say once a year, I'd probably go back and just watch all the cutscenes from pretty much all the games. And part of the reason I like Soul Reaver 2 so much is because of the cinematography. It's really good. My favorite shot in the entire franchise is in this game. It's that one where you see Cain and Raziel to pillars, and you see the camera slowly glide down, and it swoops down, and then there's a shot of Cain. That looks like professional movie cinematography right there. And if nothing else, they probably won't bring this series back, but I would be in favor of a mini series or a movie or something. I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. So I'm just saying, this game, it's pretty good in terms of the storytelling. Seriously, in the comments below, someone tell me what game you think is better in terms of cinematography, because I think this game, Soul Reaver 2 specifically, is one of the best games I've ever seen in terms of cinematography, which is saying a lot. Even up until this day. To this day, I don't think there's another game that beats the cinematography in this. If this was a movie, if this series was a TV show or a movie, I think it would get a lot more love. I think a lot of people overlook it simply based on the fact that it's just a video game, right? My personal opinion is that games can be art, but a lot of people out there, they don't believe that. They don't subscribe to that theory. They think it has to be a movie for it to be important, or it has to be a TV show for it to be important. Well, newsflash, before TVs became something that was the norm, I'm sure people back in the day probably thought, oh, it's just a TV show. It's not as good as a movie or as a book or a painting, because it's just a movie. And now, if nothing else, I'm at least happy that it seems like the games industry is finally starting to get more credit. But I do wish that they could have a little more credit. Just don't make games like Death Stranding. Alright, so sorry for going on that little tangent. So continuing on with her reply, says, finally, in terms of last minute additions, we decided very late in the game to make this a special edition disc. Since we had the room on the DVD, we had this huge acclamation of artwork, stills, backstory documents, and so on. And we had photos and more than 10 hours of video footage from the voice sessions. So we decided that while the team was tackling the final bug fixing, we'd take the time to put these bonus materials together and include them on a disc. It's sort of an added value, a thank you to the fans who have waited so patiently for Soul Reaver 2. And again, this is me again. I feel like I don't know why she's being so hard on herself. I mean, have you ever heard of Doki Doki Literature Club, guys? Like, they've been working on the sequel for that game for like 6 years. 6 years for a visual novel sequel. So, no, Amy, that didn't take long for you to actually make this. We're almost done here. I'm going to go through a couple more. I'm going to give you some more of my own thoughts as we continue this trip talking about the production and development of Soul Reaver 2. Next question. Looking back, did the game turn out as you guys thought it would? Which concepts evolved in favorable ways? Any that you wish you had time to elaborate on? Amy Hedrick would reply with, well, I'd say we initially set off to create a fairly different game. The early designs was overambitious, and in hindsight we would have too far. It was too far gone and shallow. The move to PlayStation 2 and our limited schedule forced us to concentrate on the game's core element: story, characters, combat, and environmental immersion, which in the end I think yielded a tighter and more focused game. Because we had to think strategically about our limited production schedule, many of the game's core elements developed in ways that we wouldn't have foreseen, but ultimately turned out to be favorable. We were worried, for instance, about how to pull off the whole time travel aspect of the game, which was central to the story but seemed overambitious at the same time. Out of necessity, our programmers and technical artists came up with clever strategies to address the problem. And because of this focused effort, the idea ended up being more efficient and effective, both technically and conceptually, than we had initially envisioned. Also, as certain features fell by the wayside, other aspects of the game became more crucial. We knew, for example, that the combat mechanics and AI in Soul Reaver 2 had to be more complex and satisfying than in Soul Reaver. Which, I'm going to stop for a minute here. Yes, thank God they did that, because if you saw my last video, you know, like, oh man, some of the gameplay was just infuriating in the original Soul Reaver. I still love it, but for the love of God, no more block puzzles. Like, I wanted to cry when I was in that first dungeon. I did like 3 block puzzles, and then like you turn on the fan, you go up to like the second story, you think, cool, you know, I used the bells, I shattered the windows, you're like, alright, you know, maybe no more block puzzles. And you enter a room, and then what do you see? A fucking block puzzle. I was like, dear God, somebody please shoot me in the head, for the love of God. For the love of God. So thank God they did that. I have something else to say about the time travel. Well, let's finish this off real quick because we're almost done with that. Going back in, after a combined effort from animation, programming, and design, with tons of feedback from our awesome test department, Soul Reaver 2's combat system turned out to be very fun and satisfying. It's accessible for players who just want to button mash, but it also incorporates a deep system of dodges, blocks, combos, and counterattacks, and rewards tactical gameplay. Finally, as we focused down onto the game's core elements, it became increasingly clear that the story, dialogue, and cinematic sweep of the game had to carry the game even more than we originally imagined. It took months to weave all of the desperate historical and mythological threads together, but I think it all came together in a way that will be compelling and unexpected. And in this regard, I can't praise our voices, directors, actors, and animators enough. While I'm proud of the game's story and dialogue, they deserve all the credit for bringing Soul Reaver 2's story to life. Of course, there are a dozen features we would like to include and improve upon. But again, we felt compelled to pick our battles. Most of these elements are slated to be included in Soul Reaver 3. Now that our game engine is in place, we can really concentrate on the features and mechanics that would have been luxuries this time around. GameSpot then asked, does finishing the project give you any perspectives as to the future happenings of Nosgoth? Care to clue us in? And I was interested about this one because I want to know if she did, you know, like, what were they planning? Like, I want to see if she said anything, so here we go. Amy Hennig then replies, sure. But it'd be silly of me to divulge anything. No, please, divulge everything. I'm begging you, please, for the love of God. But yeah, it'd be silly of me to divulge anything at this point. Let's just say that Soul Reaver 2 ties up a lot of long-standing questions and loose ends, but introduces many more to be addressed in Soul Reaver 3. And oh my god, I can only imagine her frustration when she saw the story for Blood Omen 2. Because I mean, she's sitting here just talking about inconsistencies with Soul Reaver 2, and then Blood Omen 2 happens and she has to retcon all kinds of stuff in that game just to make stuff make sense. Yeah, if you didn't know that, after Blood Omen 2 came out, like, Defiance had to be extremely retconned because they screwed up some of the stuff in her timeline. So when people come in here and they're in my comment section and they're like, oh, you just don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Elder Cain, you know, his heart went to Janos and blah blah blah, none of that stuff was made by Amy Hennig. I don't know what to tell you guys. She did not want the game to go down like that. She has said that in multiple interviews. Alright? Like, all you guys are like, oh no, it fits perfectly, blah blah blah. Okay, cool, hate me, I guess. Hate me. Like they said. Like Cain said. But still, like, real talk, no, that's not how the game was supposed to go down. So, I don't know why you guys keep saying that. But continuing on with her response, she goes on to say, I don't have every little thing worked out yet. This is going to sound high key. I don't understand, Amy. But to some degree, you just have to let go. Let the story tell itself and follow the characters where they take you. There are scenes that I set out to write one way, and by the time I was finished, the interaction between the characters had gone in a completely different direction. If you try to nail everything down and dissect it, I think you kill it. You have to leave room for inspiration. Agreed, but I also believe you should leave room for interpretation, because, I mean, I love the fan theories for this series. You know, like in my first Blood Omen retrospective video, I talked about the whole theory about Cain's token being the Soul Reaver itself. I still stand behind that, by the way. The point is there's a lot of good fan theories for this game, so if you're interested in that, it's definitely worth taking the trip down into Reddit and really going down that rabbit hole. Maybe one day I'll go through a whole bunch of them. I'll take all the theories I've made, all the theories that I've read elsewhere, put it all together into some kind of amalgamation, like a Soul Reaver fan theory iceberg video or something. Actually, that sounds like a good idea. I should probably do that. That's my dog. Sorry, guys. Well, this is just a preliminary anyways. I'm gonna edit all this out. Fuck it. Unless I forget to do that. So, continuing. GameSpot. Any chance of seeing Soul Reaver 2 on other platforms? Amy Hennig. We just completed the PC version of the game. Oh my god. Why? Why, Amy Hennig? Why is the PC version so difficult to fucking use? Like, come on. I can't get it to work. I hope one day I figure it out, because I am just so frustrated when it comes to that. Like, you guys have no idea. I was barely able to get any of the footage for this. Like, honestly, like, I'm really trying to actually fix that, because I need better footage and I need to completely replay the game. I've been playing it on my PlayStation 2 because I can't play it on PC. So if anybody out there knows how to fix it, let me know. If I ever figure out a way to do it, I'll probably make a video and I'll put it on just so everybody here listening can actually play the game for the love of God, as we deserve to play this game. But sorry for that little tangent. Let's keep going. I'm going to repeat this. Annie had responded with, we just completed the PC version of the game, which will be out shortly. It'll be available in both US and Europe. As far as consoles go though, Soul Reaver 2 is available exclusively on PlayStation 2. GameSpot then asked, finally, do you have any words for the fans of this long-awaited game? Amy Hennig, long-awaited, dude, it's been 1.5 years. Like, geez, guy. Like, this really shows you, like, the way things were back then. You know, they're like, oh man, it's been 1.5 years. Like, is this game ever coming out? Meanwhile, you got like Half-Life 3, it's been like 15 years and we still don't have it. We finally get something for it, and it's a fucking VR game. Which, not gonna lie, if they made Soul Reaver in VR, I would play the shit out of that. I don't know anybody that wouldn't. I think that'd be amazing. Of course, they're probably not going to do that. They probably will never even make a remake of this game. I really wish they would. You know what I hate about that? Sorry about this quick little rant, but I hate how when fans try to make these fan games, like these remake fan games, and they make them beautiful and like you're all excited to play it, and then the company gets wind of it and they shut it down, and then just do nothing with the IP for like 10 years. Like, good example of this is recently someone was trying to remake the original Mortal Kombat, and it was going to be in HD. Like, I think they had Scorpion and Sub-Zero done, and one level, maybe 2 levels, and it looked beautiful, right? And it wasn't 3D, it was legit the original game, just all the digital art looked better. And they had been working on it, and then right before Mortal Kombat 11, the people at NetherRealm Studios figured out they were doing that, and sent them a cease and desist, which is fucked up in my opinion. I remember when that happened, a lot of people in the Mortal Kombat community, because I'm also a big Mortal Kombat fan, thought that, maybe this means they're actually going to re-release MK1, maybe 2 and 3, with like updated graphics. I don't mean 3D, I just mean clearer versions of the 2D sprites. And we can get that, because this was around the time when they actually came out with the whole, Ultra Street Fighter 2, where they redid all the graphics so it looks more like an anime, which was pretty cool. But yeah, so even if somebody did like remake Soul Reaver on like Unreal Engine 5 or something like that, they probably would not let it go through, unfortunately. I just don't get it. It's like Square Enix doesn't like money. They're the ones that own this series still, right? I better double check that before someone bitches me out in the comments, but I don't know. I'm recording this it don't matter. I'll edit all this out later. Anyways, the answer she gives to the question of, do you have any words for the fans of this long-awaited game, was, throughout development, one of the constant challenges has been how to make a game that appeals to the die-hard Legacy of Kain fans and satisfies their desire for story, consistency, and depth, yet doesn't alienate players who are new to the series. Based on early feedback, I think we have successfully straddled that fence. I want to assure our loyal fans that Soul Reaver 2 has thoroughly stepped into Nosgoth's history and mythology, even down to the smallest details. The game is deeply story-based, with as much dialogue as both Soul Reaver and Blood Omen Legacy of Kain combined. And while the game's plot doesn't require an in-depth familiarity with the Legacy of Kain mythos, I would say it definitely provided a deeper story experience for those who have been following Kain's story from the very beginning. So when the interview comes to an end, thank you for listening to me. The reason I decided to go through that is I felt like it was better for me to give you guys her perspective on the whole development of this game instead of me just speculating. I did that in the first game, and the first video I should say, and I was wrong. Like, Dennis Dyack himself came into my comments and was like, dude, you're wrong. And he corrected a bunch of stuff that I said, and I feel like a jerk for that. So I know you're probably not listening, but if you are, Dennis Dyack, my bad. I should probably make a video and retract all the things I got wrong in that. To be fair, I mean, I didn't get a lot wrong. There was just little specific details that I couldn't find in media, which obviously he would know way better than me. He's effing Dennis Dyack. You know, I'm just a dude with a microphone sitting in his room trying to talk about a video game series that I loved from when I was a kid, to be real. Well, with all that being said, it's about time for us to move on to gameplay. There's just a couple more things I want to talk about when it comes to production and development. Again, I'm amazed that they were able to make this game within a year and a half. I really wish that we knew like all of Amy Hennig's thoughts on the Blood Omen 2 team. The next video where I'm going to be doing the Blood Omen 2 retrospective, that'll be really interesting. Can't wait to start doing research for that, because it's going to be really interesting for me to like really dive into the whole process of why that game ended up the way it was. Considering, like I said in the last video, it started out as Chicon 2, I'm really interested to see exactly what was going on there. Because, you know, it's better to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? Than for us to just speculate. Which is why I decided to go down this route. If you guys are still here at the 45-minute mark, I appreciate it. If you've been enjoying this, please stick around. And we're going to go into the gameplay. Let's do it. Hey guys, it's future me. I'm recording this section months and months later since I recorded this video. I'm probably going to edit this message into the beginning of the video, but if you're still here, this is the part where I would have gone into the gameplay. This is as far as I got into making this video. Mitigating circumstances. There was a bunch of stuff in life that I had to work around. Pretty soon I'm going to actually make the real video. This is not the real video. I know some of you probably are wondering why even release this. This is just a placeholder. Yep. You know, shout out to Batman83. I know there's people here that have been waiting for this video. I won't be able to actually start making the real video for a little while, a few weeks, honestly, only. Once I do, I'm gonna get heavy into it, and it's gonna be a lot different from what you just heard. So I just want to give everyone a heads up. I figured I might as well just throw it out there. You know, simply for the fans on the channel that like Legacy of Kain. I don't know, maybe you get a kick out of hearing that interview. Maybe you enjoy it. Hopefully you do. Maybe you enjoy some of the commentary. But like I said, just putting this out here for you guys that was stuck with me. I appreciate every one of you, especially you. Shout out again to Batman83. Thank you for sticking around, bro. Real talk. So this one's for you. And I'll be talking to you guys soon. Late.